Good morning, class. Today for math, we're going to review what we've learned so far about percents. So I'm just going to do a quick summary of some of the key points I want you guys to remember, and you can take notes in your math journal. So first of all, we learned that percents are part of 100, and we can represent this visually as a ratio, where 100 is at the bottom, and then whatever your percentage is on the top. So let's say John made 80% on his test last week. We'd represent it as a ratio with 80 being on the top and 100 being on the bottom. We also learned that percents are important because they're related to other mathematical problems, and they're related to things such as equivalent fractions as well as proportions. So you'll see percentages all throughout math and throughout your daily life. Who can tell me where you might see percentages out in the real world? Good. Maybe at the store, shopping. Maybe buying groceries or clothes when you go with your parents. Sometimes stores will have a sale. Do you guys ever see the sales? Sometimes it'll be 50% off or 30% off. Learning percentages and how to figure out percentages can help you out in the real world when you want to find out how much you're going to save, because you're taking 50% off of a product or 30% off a product. You can learn how to do the percentages and figure out how much you're going to save. So percentages can be helpful in your real life and in your academic career. So we're going to go over one of the methods we use for finding percentages. And that's using two fractions or two ratios, and we're going to cross multiply them to find out what the percentage is. So this is just one technique we could use. There's several techniques, but we'll go over this one, make sure you're comfortable with it, and then we can move on. So I'll give you guys a minute to copy down this first part. Okay, so let's move on to finding percentages. So here's an example. If you wanted to find 40% of 60, we'd want to write that as two fractions and cross multiply them. So using what we already know, 40%, like we talked about this right here, 40% is part of 100, right? So we already know that the 100 is going to be here on the bottom. So who can tell me, if I'm writing 40% as a ratio, what would be on the top? Good. 40, right? Because we're doing 40%. Now, we're going to write 60%. That's another number that's given that we already know. But we're trying to find out what 40% of 60 is. So here, we'll put an X because that's what we're solving for. We want to find out what 40% of 60 is. So this is how you would write it visually. Now, to solve the problem, the first step, of course, is using the information we have and creating our two fractions or ratios. So we have 40 over 100, X over 60. We're solving for X because we want to find out what 40% of 60 is. We want to find out what this number is. So the first thing you want to do is, after you get your fractions, is cross multiply. And we went over this already, but who can tell me how we cross multiply? Do we go from here to here? Good. We go from the top left to the bottom right. So then we would be multiplying 40 times 60. So if we multiply 40 times 60, and I'm going to write it up here just so you guys can see. Who can tell me what that would be? Good. 2,400. Now that's a big number, but we'll make that a little bit smaller. So we cross multiplied, we got 40 times 60. So the next step we want to do is divide, and we're going to divide by the remaining 100, the last number left, right? So if we have 2,400 and we divide that by the 100, who can tell me what you'll get? Good. Did somebody? Good. You get 24. So just like that, we solved for x. So the answer is 24. So 40% of 60 is 24. And you can put it in here or box it over here. So again, going back over the steps, the first thing you want to do, like any problem solving, you want to read the problem carefully, see what's given, what information is given. 40% of 60. Right off the top, we know how to write 40% as a ratio, right? We know that the percent is a part of 100. So then we already know the 40 is going to go on the top, 100 is on the bottom. 60, we know that's another given number. We're solving for that because we don't know what percent of 60, right? That's what we want to find out. So that's going to be our x, and then our 60 is going to be on the bottom, right? And the next step, cross multiply, top left to bottom right. Once you get the product of that cross multiplication, then you want to divide by the remaining number. What's left? 100, right? So then you want to divide by 100, and then you get your answer. So 24 is 40% of 60. Okay? So let's go over, this is a review, but let's quickly summarize what we've learned so far about percents. So a percent is part of what, everybody? 100, right? And then we're written as a ratio. What's on the bottom? 100, right? Good. A percent is related to equivalent fractions as well as proportions. And another one that I don't have up here that we used, ratios, right? Because we can sometimes interchangeable fractions or ratios. When we're trying to solve, we're using two fractions or ratios, right? And then our finding percentage, our technique we used, right, was using two fractions, cross multiply, and then dividing, right? And we'll have the steps that we wrote out earlier. You guys copied in your math journal. You have those 4 steps that you can copy to, refer back to if you need to figure out percentage. And then I'm going to give you guys also a small worksheet to work on, to do some independent work on your own. And I'll put a couple of more examples up here. We'll work together just to make sure you guys got it. And then you guys can do some independent work with the fractions. And remember, fractions or percents, I'm saying fractions. Percents are important not only throughout math, you'll see it all throughout math, but also in your real life too, right? So you want to remember this technique and then get comfortable with it. And then there's other techniques that we talked about, okay? So right now, I'm going to clear the board. We'll do a few more examples as a class. And then I'm going to give you some independent work to take with you, okay? All right, good job, class.